right before your eyes. South Florida is shifting, the tides start to turn. If you don't know the math, you're gonna get burned. Yeah, this is the Miami Condo Exchange. Welcome to the Miami Condo Exchange, where we break down the price, the scope and the range. With Peter Zalewski, keeping it real, digging deep in the dirt of every single deal. From the buy-side pressure to the sell-side heat, the only podcast you need on the Miami street. Hey. Real numbers, real talk. The hyperbole stops here. This is the Miami Condo Exchange, y'all.
Happy Tuesday, Miami. This is Miami Condo Exchange. A statistical look at what's going on in the Tri-County, South Florida market of Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. Today, we're going to be delving into what's going on with the South Florida Condo Cliff Index, both the overall market as well as the vintage market, those condos that are at least 30 years old. What we're finding that those developers who told us that everybody's coming to town for the World Cup, they're going to be buying condos. Sellers who thought for sure people were going to be flooding into South Florida, and while they were here, they were going to go condo shopping in between the matches. It's not looking very good. We have taken a look at what's going on in the active listings as well as pending sales, and what I can tell you is pending sales are down. They're down twice as much as the actual active listings. Some of the sellers, they're not getting the prices they want, and the offers they're getting are low ball, low ball, low ball. I mean, some of you are probably listening to what we've been advising. You need to lowball those sellers. Take down pricing. Pricing is completely out of whack. A lot of sellers, they're thinking this is 2021, 2022, 2023, when you could work from home. You didn't have to wear a mask in the state of Florida, even though a lot of blue states, United States, required to do so as a result of the pandemic. And Miami Beach permitted you to twerk on a police car. Well, fast forward to where we are today for the week ending July the 7th. Basically, the World Cup's wrapped up. Miami's got, I think, 2 more matches left. We got one coming up on Saturday. It's going to be Norway versus England. And then we'll have the third place game before the whole tournament winds down. You know what we found? We found that the pending sales are plummeting. We also found that the active listings, they have been cut dramatically. Close to 500 listings simply taken off the market. Maybe they were canceled, maybe they were withdrawn, maybe some of them closed. But basically, the amount of condos available for purchase in South Florida is the lowest it's been since we started tracking the statistics back on January the 1st of 2025 in anticipation of what we call the condo cliff, the Florida Condo Association Financial Cliff. What is the cliff? Cliff is a scenario when you go ahead, you own a unit in a building, you do everything you can to make the payments, make it happen. People around you start to go bad. They either decide not to pay or they cannot pay. Many even face foreclosure either through the condo association itself and or through the lenders. As units start to trade, creates downward pressure on pricing. Think like the game Tetris. And as it goes down, it creates this cliff scenario where you're into a unit, you're trying to withhold the pressure, the inertia, and at the end of the day, who knows how it plays out. If anybody who's here during the Great Recession, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we're going to get into all the statistics. We're going to tell you county by county by county what's going on. We'll give you some real-time perspective. We're also going to talk about pricing. What is going on pricing? We all know it's a supply-demand game. During 2021, 2022, 2023, people were bidding up pricing. You know what's happening today? Asking prices are coming down. Pending sales averages tend to be going up. But if you take a look at those median numbers, it's not very enticing, if you will, or exciting if you are a seller. So we're going to get into all of that today on the Miami Condo Exchange. I'm Peter Zalewski, condo consultant, expert witness, founder, Miami Condo Investing Club. We're building a community of those people interested in the condo market, interested in data, and basically interested in a community where you can share real-time information about what's going on in the marketplace. None of the Chamber of Commerce talk. None of the sell side talk about 1,000 people a day moving to Florida, even though the population in South Florida is going down. Well, it doesn't matter. Nothing about the gateway to Latin America, even though we got an immigration policy that isn't necessarily welcoming of those people coming from south of Miami, but sort of a different story. We're going to give you straight talk information, and that's what the Miami Condo Investing Club is all about. If you are a member, I want to remind you, tomorrow we're going to be having our July 2026 monthly meeting. We always do it on the second Wednesday of every month. We do it at 4 o'clock. In fact, I do podcasts every day at 4 o'clock. We go live in which we talk about condos. Mondays we do Miami Condo Mondays with my partner Jenny Huertas at CVR Realty. Check out her website, cvrrealty.com. Tuesdays we talk statistics with the Miami Condo Exchange. It is our perspective where we look at the condo market as if it's a large trading pit, a trading floor, if you will, for condominiums. Back in the day, before you could buy and sell stock and equities and in crypto on your phone, you used to have to go through a broker. A broker would contact somebody on the floor of a trading pit, and that's where you would buy or you would sell basically anything you were holding. That doesn't exist anymore today. But when you look at this condo market in Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County, I see a big trading pit here. People are basically speculators. They're investors. They're not here for a family of four and a dog living the American dream. They're here to basically buy low and sell high. But you all know what they do. They inevitably go the wrong way. Why? Because they get caught up in the excitement, they get caught up in the fear of missing out, FOMO, and they ultimately chase this shining object. And when that shiny object is in front of you, real hard to sort of resist, especially when you got the weather. You got the pretty people, and you got the food and the booze flowing. So that is what South Florida does. That's what South Florida's been doing for 100 years. 100 years ago is when we hit the peak of the great Florida land boom of the 1920s. We're going to be celebrating effectively the end of it, or recognizing, I should say, the end of it, which was September of 1926 when the great Miami hurricane came rolling through, basically killed the market and never recovered. And there's a book called Bubble in the Sun by a gentleman called Christopher Knowlton, who basically makes the argument the collapse of the Florida real estate market, 1926, ultimately was what lit the fuse for what would become ultimately Black Friday on Wall Street in political decisions like tariffs, protectionism, that ultimately led to what would become the Great Depression, going back 100 years ago or so. If anybody's interested in that, either of those books, I'd encourage you to check out Bubble in the Sun, Christopher Knowlton. That'll take you basically up till about 1929. And then there's a great book called 1929 written by Andrew Ross Sorkin. He's a anchor at CNBC, the business network. He wrote this book kind of walking all the way through it. So you guys want a good glimpse of where we were 100 years ago and Florida's impact on all of that, check out those two books. And I have a feeling if you read those books and you kind of look at it where we are today, kind of some interesting things. Back then, they had a company called RCA. Today, we got a company called NVIDIA. Everybody wanted to be in it. The stock was going up. Well, we'll kind of see how it goes out. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about what is the latest going on in the Tri-County, South Florida condo market. And remember, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. I'll tell you, because you're watching this live, you're going to see everything for free. Once the podcast is over, I will go ahead. I will make it available on demand. There'll be a paywall, though. So if you're a member of the club, you simply make sure you log in. You get there. You can watch it. You can skip ahead. You can watch whatever you want. If you're not a member of the club, you're probably going to get the first 10, 15 minutes for free or so. But if you do want to see the rest of it, you'll have to join the club, MiamiCondo.club, to get more information. And those of you who will be attending tomorrow's July 2026 monthly meeting of the Miami Condo Investing Club starts at 4 o'clock. We will go live. We'll make all the information available, and then shortly thereafter, we will be editing it and make it available on demand for club members, where I talk about where are we, where were we, and where we are going. So let's go ahead and share our screen, and we're going to take you through some line charts, give you guys a real-time perspective as to what's going on in the condo market. Keep in mind, we look at this week over week over week. Every Tuesday, we check it out. Why? A lot of stuff gets done over the weekend, and by the time it's updated, Tuesday is a good time. Everything's basically been cleared for the weekend, and it gives us a great perspective. So we go week over week over week, and therefore we're able to track it. We're looking at active listings, looking at pending sales. Basically, the way it works is if the index is going up, that's advantage seller. If that index is going down, that's advantage buyer. So if you're a buyer, you want a market where it's heading downward. If you're a seller, you better hope you're in a market that's heading upward. Listing agents, go for the markets that are going upward unless you are in the game to basically take advantage of the unraveling that's going on in the real estate market. Real simple, easy way to sort of gauge it. As we look at the various indices, you're going to be able to compare markets to market to market. We're going to look at today, we're going to look at South Florida in general. Then we're going to break it out for Miami-Dade separately, Broward County separately, Palm Beach County separately. So South Florida, we'll combine all 3 counties, and then we'll individually look at them. So I'm going to give you guys a line chart talking about what's going on, the strength of the market in each county, only condos, and then we'll also get into the pricing. Now, I should point out to you, 5 years ago, you had the Surfside condo collapse. When that condo collapse occurred, basically everything changed in the condo market in Florida. Condo market in Florida was created in 1963 with a Florida condo law. As a result of that, we were kind of chugging along. It was a great opportunity, a way to get people who are coming down here to vacation, ultimately invest, contribute to our local tax base, contribute to our economy, and spend 6 months a year. So they all came rolling in. They were doing what they're doing. And then on June 24th, 2021, we had that tragedy occur where nearly 100 people died. $1 billion settlement was paid out to the families of victims when a 136-unit building simply collapsed. Changed everything. Condo laws have changed in Florida. The real focus now of the laws that came into place as a result of Surfside are all about transparency. Transparency on behalf of unit owners as well as prospective buyers as to what's going on with the association. Share the information. The other thing that's going on, it has to do with inspections. Buildings in Florida now have to have an inspection every 10 years. It's called Structural Integrity Reserve Study, a SIRS, S-I-R-S, SIRS, every 10 years. So year 10, you do a SIRS. Year 20, you do a SIRS. Year 30, though, you do something called a milestone inspection. It's kind of like a midlife crisis. So that's when you got to go and you got to get that in-depth physical, colonoscopy, depending, whatever you want to call it. That's what happens at year 30. It's called a milestone inspection. And when you get to that 30-year mark, you're now under greater risk. And as a result of that, we call those buildings that are at least 30 years old, we call them vintage condos. Anything built and standing and operating between year 1 and year 29, we're calling it modern. Once you hit 30, we're calling it vintage. So our indices, they break it out for the overall market, which is everything, and then they'll carve it out for the vintage market. And guess what's going on? People are going after vintage condos. Even though 5 years ago, a lot of people died because of the old building and it collapsed and there was lack of money spent to do what was necessary, people want vintage. What are some of the reasons they want vintage? Well, the way it's playing out is roughly it's about 40% cheaper asking price. Day one going in, 40% cheaper to go in one of these vintage condos. Another reason they maybe want vintage is now the inspections are required. States requiring licensed architect, licensed engineer to go in there and inspect the building, come up with an assessment of what's going on, what is the shelf life of each critical component, and what it's going to take and what the timeline is to fix everything. Once all of that analysis is done, it's turned over by numbers people. Numbers people will assign a dollar amount to get it done. The complete report's turned over to the board of the condo association, who now have to begin to fund it. No more deferrals. Nobody overriding it because they were a roofer in New Jersey and they took a look at a roof and they said everything's fine. That does not exist anymore as of 2026. And as a result of that, we got hefty special assessments, especially on the buildings that are at least 30 years old. If you were in a building that's at least 30 years old, it's going up to 4 stories, you're probably looking at $25,000 special assessment. If your building is 5 to 14 stories, call that 65 grand. And that building 15 stories or more, that's $100,000 per unit. Roughly, you get a year to pay. If the association has set it up that way, you get a year to pay. You got to play catch up. And the other alternative is association could take out a loan. They go to private money lender, take out a loan. Some would call it a hard money lender. Interest rates so are 9, 10, 11%. So it's very expensive money. So associations don't know what to do. Many of them are just forcing their unit owners to go ahead and come up with the cash. But if people can't come up with the cash, what do? They head for the exits. Commercial real estate appraiser told me 4 deals trading in a building will reset, recalibrate, reprice an entire building. And that's what we're starting to see. And the numbers are sort of bearing it out. So as we get into these line charts, I want you to keep in mind 2 themes. One theme is buyers want vintage. They don't want modern. They want vintage, better value. 40% cheaper on average on the asking price. In addition to that, tend to be better locations. They were built in 1996 or before. Much more land to choose from, better locations on vintage condos. You know what else vintage condos have? They have much larger square footage. Now, if you're an investor, might not necessarily work. An investor wants small, tight, efficient units. But an end user, they want more space. Today, a 1-bedroom is 700 to 750 square feet. A 2-bedroom is going to be 1,000 square feet. Well, go ahead and take a look at where they were in 1996. About 1,200 square feet for a 1-bed, 2,000 square feet for a 2-bed. So this is the yin and yang. And what is the final cherry on top if you go into one of these vintage condos versus a modern condo? Vintage condos, you get to drive your car into your parking space. That is a luxury today. They're not doing it anymore. Parking's very expensive to build. Costs about $40,000 a parking space. About 1.5 parking spaces per unit in a building. Therefore, developers are trying to minimize it by parking them bumper to bumper, by stacking them, by doing a whole variety of things. So parking your own car is really become a luxury in vintage condos. It's just standard par for the course. But modern condos, much more of a luxury. So as a result of that, many people are going towards vintage, and they are basically snubbing their nose at the modern condos, and that's what the data is sort of bearing out. So that being said, let's go ahead and let's share our chart. We're going to get into it. We'll take you guys through what we're seeing in the marketplace. So let me pull up my share